ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a powerful and often misunderstood dynamic in relationships, the push and pull between people who avoid connection and those who are desperate to connect. This is an experience many of you might have lived through, and for others, it's something that resonates deeply. Today, we're going to dive into the complex, often heart-wrenching emotions of the avoidant and what they truly hope for when you go no contact. You see, no matter how much they push you away, deep down, they're hoping for something more than the silence. Let's break it down. So the next time you think about going no contact, understand that while it may feel like a clean break for you, the journey for the avoidant is just beginning. They may hope for healing, for growth, and for the realization of what they've lost. They might not show it, but deep down, they're praying for the space to find their way back to you or to find their way back to themselves. It's not about punishment, it's about potential. Because in that silence, both of you have the opportunity to redefine what connection truly means. In relationships with avoidance, the journey is never straightforward. While it might feel like they're pushing you away or pulling back when you need them most, it's crucial to understand that this behavior stems from deeply ingrained fears. Fear of intimacy, vulnerability, and abandonment creates a defensive wall, and these individuals don't often know how to handle closeness without feeling threatened. So when you go no contact, it's not just a signal of withdrawal, it's a catalyst for deeper introspection on their part. It's an opportunity for them to process their own fears, their past hurts, and perhaps even their feelings of loss. But it's important to remember this space isn't meant to punish them, it's meant to provide a moment of reflection and healing, which they desperately need. The no contact rule, while difficult and painful, has the potential to ignite something more profound in the avoidant person. They hope that in the absence of your presence, they'll feel the void and emptiness that calls them to look within themselves. Over time, they might begin to realize the value of what they've pushed away. For the first time, they might feel a longing, a desire to reconnect. This feeling of loss doesn't immediately lead to action, but it starts a process of shift in perspective. It's in the quiet that they may begin to understand the gravity of the connection they once had with you. The void is not just a space of absence, it's a space of potential growth. Yet they aren't just sitting in the silence hoping for change, they're also testing the strength of their own independence. Avoidants are deeply invested in their ability to navigate life without relying on others for emotional fulfillment. They take comfort in knowing that they can survive on their own even when they desire connection. When you go no contact, they're quietly hoping that it reinforces their self-sufficiency, that they don't need anyone to complete them. But this is a delicate balance. In some cases, it may lead them to question their choices and their need for emotional connection. In others, it might push them further into isolation, reinforcing their belief that vulnerability is too risky. Through all of this, there's also a subtle hope that they will grow emotionally. The very thing they fear the most is also what they need the most: emotional intimacy. By distancing themselves from you, they might actually be allowing the space needed to heal and grow. It's an uncomfortable process, but one that can lead to emotional maturity. Going no contact forces them to face their fears, confront past traumas, and eventually reframe their understanding of relationships. They might not recognize it immediately, but this period of silence is often the first step in healing the deep wounds that led them to avoid closeness in the first place. Finally, as you pull away, the avoidant may hope that you've left them the space to heal. The wounds they carry are often not visible, hidden beneath layers of defense mechanisms and self-protective behaviors. They may hope that without the pressure of constant emotional demands, they can begin to process their inner turmoil. It's not that they don't care about you, they do, but they need to address their own emotional baggage first. The no contact rule gives them the room to rebuild, reframe, and ultimately return to a place where they can engage in a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. But in the end, it's not just about you coming back into their lives. It's about both of you finding a way to be whole individually and together. In essence, going no contact is not an act of rejection, but one of empowerment. It creates a necessary pause in the relationship, giving both individuals the chance to reevaluate, heal, and grow. For the avoidant, this space offers a chance to confront their fears, underfare their emotional needs, and perhaps take the first step toward greater emotional availability. For you, it's a chance to rediscover your own strength, self-worth, and clarity. The journey is complex, filled with emotional highs and lows. But in the end, no contact holds the potential for transformation for both of you. When we enter into relationships with avoidant individuals, we often find ourselves tangled in a web of confusion where their emotional walls seem impenetrable. They push away when we try to get close, often leaving us questioning whether they truly care. But what we need to understand is that their avoidance is a reflection of their internal struggle rooted in fear and self-protection. For the avoidant, intimacy feels like a threat to their independence, and the idea of emotional vulnerability can be terrifying. So when you go no contact, it's not simply an end, it becomes a tool of growth both for you and for them. In their space of solitude, they may begin to question their own behavior, their fears, and what it truly means to be loved and to love in return. The The absence you create by going no contact is often the very catalyst that forces the avoidant to reflect. This absence is not a rejection, but rather a chance for them to face the emotional gap between them and you. In this silence, they may begin to feel something they rarely allow themselves to acknowledge, longing. While they may resist it at first, this yearning can serve as a wake-up call, a reminder of what they've lost, what they once had, and how meaningful that connection truly was. They might not express it immediately, but this space allows them to process feelings they've long kept hidden. In their heart, they hope this space will lead to clarity, to a moment when they can come to terms with their fears and find the courage to open up. Avoidants also hope on a subconscious level that your no contact will reinforce their belief in their own independence. One of the most difficult challenges for avoidants is their deep-rooted desire for self-sufficiency. They fear being emotionally dependent on someone else, which leads them to push others away, even when they crave connection. When you step back and stop chasing them, they hope this validates their belief that they can survive on their own. This doesn't mean they don't want intimacy. It means they are caught between the need for emotional closeness and the need to protect themselves from getting hurt. By holding firm, you give them a chance to see if they can truly manage their life without leaning on someone else, which ultimately challenges them to face their own vulnerabilities. In the midst of this emotional turmoil, there's a glimmer of hope that the no contact period will spur emotional growth. While avoidants are experts at deflecting intimacy, they often carry emotional wounds beneath their stoic surface as wounds that prevent them from forming deep, meaningful connections. This space that you've created is a quiet invitation for them to address these wounds. They hope that in your absence, they will be able to work through their fears, past traumas, and unresolved emotions. It's a delicate process that doesn't happen overnight, but the silence forces them to confront what they've been avoiding. Through this, they may find the courage to grow emotionally, to become more self-aware, and eventually to be more open in future relationships. Finally, the avoidant hopes that no contact will allow them the time and space to heal at their own pace. Healing is never a linear process, and for someone who has spent so much time hiding their true feelings, it's an incredibly difficult journey. Without the pressure of constant emotional engagement, the avoidant can begin to heal without feeling judged or overwhelmed. The emotional distance provides them with the room to process their past, to reframe their perspective on relationships, and to rebuild their trust in themselves and others. They may not be ready to admit it, but they hope that through this time apart, they'll come back stronger and more emotionally available and able to offer you the kind of connection they were once too afraid to give. In conclusion, going no contact is not an against revenge or punishment. It's a powerful opportunity for both individuals to step back, evaluate, and heal. For the avoidant, it's a chance to reflect on their own emotional barriers, to confront their fears, and ultimately to grow into a more emotionally mature person. For you, it's a moment to reclaim your power, set your boundaries, and rediscover your worth. It's a journey of transformation, one that may not always be easy or immediate, but one that holds the potential for deeper connection in the future. So embrace the silence, trust the process, and know that sometimes the greatest gift you can give both yourself and an avoidant is the space to truly heal. In relationships avoidance, it's easy to feel as though you are constantly playing a game where the rules are unclear and the emotional investment feels unreciprocated. When you go no contact, it seemed like a final cut, a point of no return, and at times it may even feel like a form of abandonment. But in reality, it's much more complex than that. What avoidants hope for when you step away is not just silence, but an opportunity to reflect, to confront their inner turmoil, and to reconsider their relationship with intimacy. The no contact rule forces them into a space of discomfort, one that compels them to evaluate their fears of vulnerability, emotional dependence, and the very idea of love itself. It's a necessary reset that, while painful, holds the potential for growth and change. When the space you create with no contact becomes a silent mirror, avoidants start to see the very real consequences of their distancing. They begin to long for the connection they once resisted, though they may not fully understand it at first. It's in this absence that they realize what they've been avoiding, not just you, but their own emotions. This longing can be both a wake-up call and a path to emotional healing. The desire to reconnect may arise slowly as they begin to ask themselves whether their actions have cost them something valuable. While they may never openly express it, inside they are processing the loss, the isolation, and the realization that what they pushed away might have been worth keeping. However, their hope is also tied to a subconscious test of their independence. The avoidant has often built their identity around the belief that they are better off on their own. They fear being dependent on someone else for emotional fulfillment, believing that any connection that's too close may suffocate their need for space. So when you go no contact, they secretly hope that it will prove they can live without you, that they can exist independently and without emotional attachment. But the truth is, even in their insistence on self-reliance, they crave something more, something that in time they may come to recognize. No contact, rather than pushing them further into isolation, might slowly reveal that their independence isn't as fulfilling as they thought. This can lead them to question their defenses and in some cases reconsider the role of others in their lives. For the avoidant, no contact also presents an opportunity for emotional growth that they might not experience otherwise. Often avoidants have deep-seated wounds, many of which come from past experiences of rejection, abandonment, or emotional neglect. These experiences create barriers that prevent them from being truly open and vulnerable with others. The absence of contact can act as a catalyst for them to face these wounds, to begin the long process of healing that they have been too afraid to address. They may not be able to heal overnight, but the time and space provided by no contact allow them to confront their emotional baggage without the pressure of relationship dynamics. It's a painful but necessary step in their journey toward becoming more emotionally available and mature. Lastly, one of the greatest hopes that avoidants have when you go no contact is that the space you provide will allow them to heal in their own time. Avoidants often carry deep emotional scars, fear of abandonment, feelings of unworthiness, and a lack of trust. These wounds are not easily healed by the presence of others. Instead, they need time to process their emotions without feeling constantly pressured to perform in a relationship. They hope that by being given this emotional distance, they will be able to reflect, to heal, and no contact is often misunderstood as simply a tool for cutting ties, but in reality, it can be a transformative and powerful tool for both you and the avoiding individual. While you may think of it as a final severance, the reality is far more layered. For the avoidant, the silence you create is not only a space of potential regret, but also one of deep reflection. When you pull away, they are forced to confront the very things they usually run from: intimacy, emotional vulnerability, and connection. They may not express it outwardly, but inside there is a brewing sense of realization about what they've been avoiding and what they could potentially lose. No contact doesn't just mean an end, it provides the space for new beginnings, even if it's a long, slow process of interchange. During this time, the avoidant will often struggle with feelings of longing and a desire to understand what went wrong. They are not immune to the emotional void left by your absence, even if it takes time for them to fully process. The space you create doesn't just prompt them to miss your presence, it forces them to reflect on their own actions and the emotional walls they built. They begin to question their approach to relationships, their fears of vulnerability, and their reluctance to truly connect. This absence of contact is like a mirror. They now see their own emotional distance more clearly than before. In this silence, they may finally realize that the closeness they resisted could have been the very thing that brought them the connection they deeply need but were too afraid to pursue. At the same time, the avoidant is secretly testing their own independence. For many avoidants, their self-worth is deeply tied to their ability to be emotionally self-sufficient. They've often been conditioned to believe that relying on someone else is a weakness or that emotional dependence could lead to suffocation. So when you go no contact, they may secretly hope that it proves they can thrive without the need for anyone else's emotional support. But as they navigate through this emotional distance, they may come to realize that complete independence doesn't offer the fulfillment they thought it would. What they often crave beneath the surface is not isolation, but a safe, healthy connection. And when you step back, they may begin to feel the deep void that only meaningful relationships can fill. In the absence of constant interaction, avoidants often hope that this space will spark emotional growth. Many avoidants carry unresolved trauma or emotional wounds from past experiences of rejection or neglect, making it difficult for them to trust or open up to others. The silence imposed by no contact gives them the opportunity to process these emotions without the distraction of relationship dynamics. It allows them to begin the healing process that might have been too painful or intimidating to face while they were still in contact. This period can be transformative, though not easy, leading them to a place where they might find the courage to confront their fears, grow emotionally, and begin to be more open to future intimacy. Ultimately, what avoidants hope for when you go no contact is the space to heal, grow, and perhaps even return to the relationship as a more emotionally available person. The wounds they carry run deep, and it's only through the quiet of no contact that they may begin to address them. They hope this time apart will allow them to better understand their own needs, face their fears, and process their emotions without the pressure of a constantly evolving relationship. While the process might seem slow and the growth uncertain, the space you create is often the catalyst for much needed transformation. It's not about closing the door permanently, it's about providing the time and space for both of you to heal so that when and if reconnection happens, it can happen from a place of strength, emotional clarity, and a deeper understanding of each other's needs. In conclusion, no contact isn't about punishing the avoidant or cutting them out of your life for good. It's about creating the necessary space for emotional growth, healing, and introspection. It's about recognizing that sometimes distance is what allows both individuals to rediscover themselves and ultimately find a more authentic connection. The avoidant may not fully realize the purpose of this space at first, but in time, they'll understand that it's not just an absence, it's an opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to finally embrace the very intimacy they've long feared. No contact is often a challenging and emotionally charged choice, particularly when it comes to relationships with avoidant individuals. It may feel like a form of emotional abandonment to you, but it's important to understand that for the avoidant person, it's far from simple. They often have deep-seated fears and defenses that prevent them from fully embracing connection, even though they might deeply want it. When you step back and establish distance, it can trigger a process that neither of you anticipated. For the avoidant, this distance isn't merely a period of separation, it is an emotional crucible that forces them to confront their inner struggles. It's an opportunity for self-reflection, growth, and most importantly, healing. In this space, they can finally face the very emotional walls they built in an attempt to protect themselves from being hurt. While it might not always be obvious on the surface, avoidants hope that the time apart will give them the chance to miss the connection they once had with you. This is not a simple longing for attention, it's a longing for something deeper, a sense of emotional fulfillment they've been pushing away. The truth is, the longer they stay in their defensive state, the more they risk losing what they truly need, authentic connection. When you step away, they are forced to feel that void, the gap between their fears and their desires. This absence isn't just about missing you, it's about giving them the time and space to process their feelings and realize that the intimacy they rush is actually the very thing they crave. The more they experience this absence, the clearer it becomes that they've been avoiding something they can't fully live without. Another key aspect of what avoidants hope for during no contact is an affirmation of their own emotional independence. One of the driving forces behind avoidant behavior is the belief that emotional self-sufficiency is paramount. They've often built their entire sense of security around the idea that they can exist alone without relying on anyone else. When you pull away, they may secretly hope that it will reinforce their belief that they can thrive independently and that they don't need anyone else to feel complete. But in reality, this independence is often a shield protecting them from the vulnerability of real connection. What they don't always realize is that emotional independence without connection can lead to isolation and loneliness. Over time, the distance you've created may help them understand that true fulfillment isn't about avoiding intimacy, it's about finding a balance where they can open up without feeling threatened by it. As the period of no contact continues, there's also the possibility that avoidants will experience emotional growth that might not have been possible if you had remained in constant communication. Many avoidants carry emotional wounds from past experiences, abandonment, rejection, or neglect that prevent them from being fully present in relationships. These emotional scars can create a cycle of avoidance where they push people away to protect themselves from further pain. When you stop engaging with them, they may initially feel relief, but eventually they will be forced to face the very issues they've been running from. This space is the perfect opportunity for them to begin the process of emotional healing. It might not be easy, and it may take time, but the absence of contact gives them the emotional space they need to process these issues and begin to heal at their own pace, free from the pressure of constant interaction. Ultimately, the greatest hope that avoidants have when you go no contact is that the space allows them to heal, grow, and come back as a more emotionally available person. While they may not initially recognize the value of the distance you've created, over time they may come to understand that this period wasn't about rejection, it was about giving both of you the room to grow individually. The absence of contact isn't just about creating distance, it's about creating an environment where both individuals can reassess their own emotional needs, desires, and the future of the relationship. For the avoidant, this can be a wake-up call that forces them to reconcile their fears with their desires for connection. It's a chance for them to heal from past wounds, confront their vulnerability, and ultimately learn to be more open and present in future relationships. In conclusion, the decision to go no contact isn't about creating a permanent separation or about abandoning me. Avoidant, it's about giving both of you the space to recalibrate, heal, and grow. For the avoidant, it's an opportunity to face their fears and to reflect on the ways in which they've been avoiding true emotional connection. For you, it's a chance to reclaim your boundaries, find your own emotional clarity, and understand your worth. The time apart allows both of you to process your emotions, understand your needs, and ultimately come back to each other from a place of strength and emotional maturity. So while the silence may feel uncomfortable or uncertain, it holds the potential for healing and transformation both for you and for the avoidant. The end result is not about a permanent goodbye, but about creating the foundation for a healthier, more fulfilling connection in the future. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this speech and explore the complex dynamics of relationships with avoidance. Understanding the intricate layers of human behavior and emotions can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. I hope that this journey has helped shed light on what avoidants truly hope for when faced with the no contact rule and how both individuals in these relationships can grow and heal. Remember, relationships, whether they are with avoidants or anyone else, are an ongoing process of learning, evolving, and understanding. Sometimes the space we create in our lives is not a signal of ending, but of transformation and potential. With that, I wish you peace, clarity, and the strength to make the best decisions for your emotional health and well-being. Thank you for your time, and until next time, goodbye. May your path forward be filled with growth, healing, and connection.